Hi, this is Sebastien Braxton, and welcome back to Verse by Verse. This is episode number 2 on Genesis chapter 1 and verse 2, where the Bible says, "The earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters." It has often been said that we are either in the middle of a storm, coming out of a storm, or about to go into a storm. And I met a woman who was literally in the middle of a storm. As I was speaking at a conference in California, she approached me and began to share the story of how just by turning away for a minute, she lost her 3-year-old son as he drowned in her own pool at her own house. You can imagine the storm that she was going through. She was feeling like things were falling apart, her mind, her faith in God, her relationship with her husband, with her family, with her parents. And it was in the midst of all of this that the question is, where is God and what is God doing? Well, a young Jewish boy reading this verse is immediately aware of the fact that when the midst of the chaos of life, that God is moving in the midst of that chaos, that God is present, that he's not overwhelmed. But it also shows this is the state of the world, which is literally translated in the Hebrew like a wilderness, a desolate area, or a desert. Now, the Jews at that time, they were actually passing through a literal desert, a desolate place that had no life. But for us, we're not necessarily in that same experience. We're not passing through literal deserts, but we are passing through our own wilderness in that we are in between something. Now, the last part of this verse, which is so critical, is that the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. That word hovering means anticipation, to be shaking in anticipation of something, almost like a mother eagle shaking in anticipation as she's hoping that her young that she just dropped from some of the highest cliffs in the world is eventually going to spread its wings and fly as it was born to do. It is in the midst of this experience that the Bible says the Spirit of God was shaking in anticipation over the face of the waters. What was he anticipating? He was anticipating a word from God. He was waiting for the Father, he was waiting for Jesus to speak that word and to take that word and bring it into reality. Now, just like the Israelites, we are also in between in life, in between jobs, in between a relationship. But I imagine that just like us, we are also shaking in anticipation, waiting on a word from God. You see, it teaches us that throughout the Bible, God is always moving in the midst of chaos, in the midst of the darkest times of our lives. God is the one that wants us to know that we need to wait upon his word. Like Joseph in Psalm 105 and verse 19, where the Bible says that he was waiting on his word from God, and thus he was tried by that word until his word came. So I want to encourage that whatever situation you're in right now, whether you're in between jobs, in between businesses, in between relationships, just continue to wait on your word to come from God. That word will come, and it will be as striking and as bright as light shining out of darkness.